Unity has announced at GDC that they have 2 new physics systems coming for their 2019 version of the Unity engine. They both sound great. The Unity physics system that they've created specifically sounds fantastic because it is deterministic. But that puts me in a really big conundrum. I have decisions to make. Hi, I'm Roger Dolos, and I'm working on a PC game called Obscuron, which is a multiplayer cooperative RPG. It's still pretty early in development so far, so why am I worked up about the physics system? Well, the character controller. I think most players take the character's controls for granted, and that's a good thing because if it's done well, it should feel just natural, consistent to the game that you're playing. For me, though, as the developer, I find the character controller the hardest part of the game to get just right. It consumes many hours of trial and error and just fiddling with things till it just feels really good. And one way to make a character controller feel good is to involve physics. But there's a problem with that. See, in most game engines, the physics are non-deterministic. What does that mean? Well, it means there's a random element, that they are hard to predict. In Unity's case, they've always used the PhysX engine for physics, which is developed by NVIDIA. And it notoriously is not deterministic, or mostly non-deterministic. There are some tricks you can do. And there are a number of factors involved that cause the lack of determinism, including floating point errors. But it works partly that way because NVIDIA designed physics for video cards to run on the GPU. Even though it also can run on the CPU, and in fact that's how Unity does it, it's still beholden to that. Typically, as a developer, when you send something to the video card like that, you lose a fair bit of control. It's like a black box. That's the trade-off for the convenience of the video card doing all that work for you. Not that Unity benefits from that, because again, it runs on the CPU in Unity, but they're still stuck in that system. And not being deterministic creates a fatal flaw for a multiplayer game. Online games can't magically send all of the information of everything that's happening in the game, believe it or not. As the game developer or service, you don't have control over the state of the internet connection that the players have. Okay, this is where I pause to warn you that I'm about to digress into a very slightly technical difference between latency and bandwidth, and use an example from a game I used to play in the past. In 3, 2, 1. Some might be on very slow connections, fast connections, and fast is a very relative term in this case because there's a vast difference between latency, which is the speed it takes to get a response, and bandwidth, which is your overall volume of data. Most internet connections are selling bandwidth, so even if you have a very high-speed connection, it may be in bandwidth, and the game still has to do a lot of catching up. Bandwidth can help that somewhat, but latency is often the bigger question. Used to play a game way back in the early 90s called Air Warrior, and it worked on General Electric's network, Genie, so not on the internet. And Genie had very good latency and very low bandwidth. And I've spoken to those developers years and years ago, and their network engineers were very pleased with that network compared to the internet. Okay, that wasn't too technical. By the way, I loved Kesmai's Air Warrior. It was just this marvel of its time, so advanced, and probably what I would consider the first functionally real-time MMO. Now let's get back to our physics talk in 3, 2, 1. I don't want to send physics information over the network, especially for character controllers, all of the characters involved. It's an RPG, so you have a lot more going on as far as characters and movement than, say, a first-person shooter. Not as fast-paced, but a lot more to keep track of, and that's a lot of rotations and locations to track. The better way to do it, the proper way, the almost standard way, is to send controls. As the players touch buttons, press keys, you send that information to the server and possibly even to the other players, and then those systems will re-simulate what happened, where the character moved. You send a lot less data that way, but you have to simulate it. And if the physics are random, you can't simulate it. And so that's why they need to be deterministic. And that's why I'm excited for the new Unity physics. But there's the conundrum still. Why would I have a conundrum? That sounds great, doesn't it? Well, it's very, very early alpha at this point, and it's a part of Unity 2019. I'm still using Unity 2018 because I'm accustomed to its features, and it's very stable at this point. 2019 is filled with all sorts of new nifty things, but I've been pretty sure that Unity isn't going to get really stable with it until a full year from now. I really want this physics system, but it's not going to be ready for a while. So what I think I'm probably going to do, as much as I am excited for it, much as I've just explained why it's very important to me, I think I'm going to be holding on to the 2018 version of Unity for a while yet. At least until I really see that this is very workable. I'm perfectly happy with the graphical features of 2018, for instance. I mean, that's supposed to be what's so great about 2019 is the new high-definition render pipeline and the new features like ray tracing for the new NVIDIA cards and whatnot. But those aren't features that I really need. I can make my game look just as pretty with the old system and keep a better frame rate too. I like the standard shader of Unity just fine. It's been existing since Unity 5, and it is really improved over time, and it's quite robust. So, yeah, I'm definitely going to be thinking about this further. I'm going to have to play around with it, give it a try. I don't know if I'm going to switch to it right now, or if I wait until Unity 2019 is further along, or maybe I do just stick with what I have and use less physics, or only in areas that don't need to be sent across the network. Yeah, that's a process. Well, I have lots to work on, and if you would like to keep up with my development, join my Discord. Talk to me. Or alternatively, you can just keep watching these game development videos. I will have another one next week, right around this time-ish. Bye for now.